in a part of the book, you write the fact that you had a chance to interview him for the first book. Then when you came out, he wasn't too happy about it because of a part of the story. Can you tell us what the evolution is from the first book to the second book?
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, the books are similar in one respect. There's just so much to learn from Amazon. It is almost the example of modern business and the opportunity of disruption. And so, both I think both books are full of revelations and lessons for students of business. So let's just posit that. In terms of the company's cooperation, it was actually very similar, maybe even a little bit better this time in terms of the company emerging from its shell, allowing me to interview senior executives. Bezos himself was very guarded on the first book. He sort of like listened to my pitch, and then he said he didn't want to cooperate. As you mentioned, Patrick, the book came out. He didn't like it for a number of reasons, including the depiction of its corporate culture as pretty, tough. And of course, I, feel like that's sort of been proven out amply by time and various testimony from employees. And then there was a personal aspect to it, which I think you're referring to, which is I ended up tracking down his biological father, long lost biological father in the first book. And that sort of hit a little bit too close to home. You mentioned the negative review from his wife at the time, Mackenzie. And then years passed. And, when I came to him for this book, they he and emailed him directly, they decided to cooperate. He didn't give me an interview for this book, but I would point to the fact that over the past few years, Bezos has been a scarce entity on the public stage, at least. I mean, he's obviously been out there, but in terms of interviews and reflections and grappling with the tough questions around Amazon, he just doesn't tend to do that a lot.
So that prompts two questions right there. That I'll go to one of them, then the other one. The first one is the father that chasing him down and wanting to speak with the biological father. What was that experience like for you when you spoke?
Yeah.
Did you see a resemblance? Was he shocked? I can't believe my son is doing this. What did you notice when you spoke to his father?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll just say, back then I was sort of curious. Well, what are the ingredients, that go into such a unique and driven entrepreneur and business figure? And that is everything from his mentors to his early jobs and of course to his upbringing. And Patrick, he went to his high school years and largely grew up there in South Florida, and talked to friends and family members. He allowed me to talk to his parents, his mother and his father, who's actually really a stepfather. And one of the questions that I was considering as I pursued it is, well, okay, so where was the biological father, and had that created any kind of an absence in his life that contributed to his remarkable drive? So, tracked down the father, who was running a bike shop in Arizona. And it turned out that the guy hadn't known that his son had become Jeff Bezos. And that ended up just being a sort of remarkable story and a little bit of a wistful story, and tied back into the Amazon story, because Bezos had always run the company with this principle of never having any regrets. And here I had tracked down the father figure who had been important in his very early life, then had left the family and had a lot of regrets. So in that way, it tied a bow around one aspect to that story.
Yeah, he talks about regret minimization. I think that's the word he uses. I think it's
Right.
the word you use in a book, the first one. But going back with his father, are you saying like his father didn't know that Jeff was his son? Like you had to find
That's right.
out. Oh, so you had to find out through his mom, who is his biological father, and
Okay.
walk
Yeah.
me through that part. Yeah.
Yeah. No, let me clarify. No, he knew he had a son in high school.
Okay.
The
Got it.
couple was in high school. He knew it his son. They were married. He was in their lives for 2 or 3 years after that. And then they got divorced and he left, and he had lost track of the family and didn't know what had happened to the son that he had as a kid, and didn't know if he was alive or not. And then ultimately, when I knocked on his door in 2013, didn't know that this wealthy, public facing, famous businessman was that kid, that baby.
He
Yeah, it's
literally
crazy.
had no idea.
No idea. No.
After
Yeah.
the meeting with you and him, did he reach out to Jeff at all? Did they have any kind of interactions or meetings or
Yeah.
no?
He tried to reach out, and Bezos wrote him a note. And then he passed away about a year later, I think.
So they never met. They never met up.
As far as I know.
Okay.
as far as I know.
It's interesting, and I'm curious to know what you're saying. Maybe you don't have an opinion on this. Maybe you do. Do you notice a correlation between individuals who, there are people that become millionaires. There are people that become billionaires. I mean, you can come up with a good idea and become a billionaire. But there are a few people that for whatever flipping reason, they cannot stop. They can't even help themselves. It's this energy like, when is it going to be enough for you? When and then you go back and you study Elon Musk with the relationship with his father. You'll all this stuff. And then, Steve Jobs' mom, hey, how do you give me up? And, Bezos' father. Do you think there is a correlation with one of the parents almost not seeing like they're going to amount to anything? How dare you leave me that I'm going to prove a point the rest of my life for you to say you weren't there? Do you kind of see something like that?
That's what I was curious about that, but let's put it this way. Let's not advise that an ingredient to good parenting or raising a motivated child is to depart their life. That's and yet, I think so in some way. And obviously every kid abandoned by a parent is, not going to be a high achiever. In fact, probably the opposite is true. And yet in some of those cases, and, we can look to Bill Clinton or Barack Obama,
right. Yep.
When the parental figure was missing, it seemed to have been at least one ingredient in a remarkable ambition and level of achievement. And yeah, that's what I was, I'm not a psychologist or, so I don't really know, but certainly that's why I went down that path. And, and it's an open question, whether that was sort of fair game. Right. And I don't, and even after all these years, I mean, I'll defend it, but I think it's a good question, like probing into the private life and the early life of a business figure. I mean, I would say that Bezos has made an impact on this world to such an extent that, understanding from whence he came and that elixir, that fueled him is interesting.
So if you like this little short clip from an interview I did, click over here to watch the entire interview, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.